Welcome to Sleepy Historian, where old tales whisper by candlelight, and memories gently drift into dreams. Tonight, let us journey back to a time long asleep in history. Frida Kahlo, 1907 to 1954, was one of the most distinctive and influential artists of the 20th century. Born in Mexico, she is best known for her haunting self-portraits and for turning her personal pain into powerful visual storytelling. After a life-altering accident at age 18, Frida painted through physical suffering, emotional turmoil, and a turbulent marriage to muralist Diego Rivera. Her art blends Mexican folk symbolism, surrealism, and fierce political expression. Beyond painting, Frida became a cultural icon, representing resilience, identity, feminism, and LGBTQ pride. Today, she stands not just as an artist, but as a symbol of unapologetic truth and creative freedom. Frida Kahlo was born on July 6, 1907, in Coyoacán, a vibrant suburb on the outskirts of Mexico City. She was the daughter of a German-born photographer and a mother of mixed Spanish and indigenous Mexican descent. Her childhood unfolded in the now famous La Casa Azul, the Blue House, a place filled with color, stories, and the sounds of old Mexico. Even as a little girl, Frida was known for her fiery spirit and vivid imagination. But her early years were not free from hardship. At the age of 6, she contracted polio, which left her right leg thinner and shorter than the other. It was a source of quiet shame and discomfort throughout her childhood. Yet, it never broke her. Instead, Frida threw herself into her studies. She excelled at school, loved science, and once dreamed of becoming a doctor. In 1922, she achieved something rare for a young woman of her time: admission to the prestigious National Preparatory School of Mexico. There, she didn't just study, she blossomed. She became part of a lively, politically active group of students, dreamers, revolutionaries, and future artists. In 1925, Frida's life took a sudden and violent turn. A bus she was riding in, alongside her boyfriend, collided with a streetcar. In the chaos, a steel handrail pierced through her abdomen and pelvis. She suffered a broken spine, a shattered collarbone, fractured ribs, a crushed leg, and a dislocated shoulder. The accident ended her hopes of becoming a doctor. But it began something else, a journey of transformation, a path where pain became paint, and suffering turned into self-portrait. And so, as Frida lay confined in a hospital bed, a new chapter quietly began. After the accident, Frida was confined to bed for months. Her body wrapped tightly in heavy plaster casts. Alone with her pain, trapped in stillness, the days blended into nights, and the silence was deep. Darkness, both physical and emotional, pressed in around her. It seemed there was no escape. But within that quiet prison, something unexpected emerged. Her family placed a mirror above her bed so she could see herself. Her father, a photographer and artist, gently encouraged her to pick up a brush. And so, she did. Frida began to paint herself. "I paint self-portraits because I am so often alone," she would later say. Her early paintings were raw, filled with piercing emotion. Her eyes looked straight out from the canvas, deep, searching, and solemn. Her iconic unibrow, bold and unapologetic, framed a face full of questions about fate, identity, and pain. But these were more than just paintings. They were her voice. Each brushstroke became an act of reclaiming control, of turning suffering into expression. She couldn't move her body, but her spirit traveled freely on canvas, speaking of pain, desire, rebellion, and the essence of who she truly was. Art became her lifeline, not just a distraction from agony, but a language beyond words. And so began a lifelong journey, of fighting through the brush, of surviving with color, of transforming scars into stories. When Frida Kahlo first held a brush from her hospital bed, she was not simply creating images, she was recording what lay deep within her soul. Her art didn't belong to any official school, though many associated it with surrealism. But Frida once rejected this. "I don't paint dreams, I paint my own reality." Frida's reality was a symphony of intense emotions: physical pain, fierce love, betrayal, patriotism, and the need to assert identity. Frida's art was a unique fusion of Mexican folklore, surrealism, and pre-Hispanic religious and cultural elements. Images like torn hearts, shattered spines, fetuses, flowers, and death itself appeared in her works as metaphors for her lived experience. Her paintings like The Broken Column, Henry Ford Hospital, and Without Hope were not made to be admired but felt with instinct. She often painted herself in traditional Tehuana dresses, with flowers in her hair and large jewelry, proudly asserting her indigenous Mexican roots, a rare act in an elite class so influenced by Europe. Her paintings became a voice for the indigenous woman, the wounded woman, the lover, the rebel, all in one. Some called her paintings too personal, too painful, but that's why they endure. She wasn't just telling her story, she was telling the story of anyone who has felt imprisoned by their body, by society, or by a broken love. Frida's art was a mirror, not one of beauty, but one that reflected the soul in its barest truth. If the accident had changed Frida's body and fate, her encounter with Diego Rivera in 1928 shaped her soul and artistic destiny. Diego Rivera, already Mexico's most famous painter, was known for his grand revolutionary murals and his scandalous libertine lifestyle. Yet between them, a man like a volcano and a woman like a flickering flame, a powerful relationship was born, blending love, pain, and creation. They married in 1929. Despite Frida's mother's disapproval, she called it a marriage between an elephant and a dove. But Frida was no fragile bird. She entered that marriage with fierce confidence, fully aware Diego was never a faithful man. They lived, loved, and betrayed each other. Both had lovers, Frida with men and women, including Leon Trotsky and Josephine Baker. In 1939, they divorced after Diego had an affair with Frida's sister, a devastating blow that shattered her emotionally. But just a year later, they remarried, not because the wounds had healed, but because they simply couldn't stay apart. Theirs was not a fairy tale love, but it fueled her most powerful works. Pain, loneliness, longing, all became the raw material for her art. The two Fridas, for example, portrayed two sides of herself, strong and wounded, as if retelling the story of her love for Diego through image. Frida Kahlo was not only a painter, she was a woman of her times, a heart ablaze with injustice, a cultural warrior in a turbulent era. Born during post-revolutionary Mexico, Frida grew up between freedom and tradition, forming sharp political awareness early on. In 1927, Frida joined the Mexican Communist Party, not as an abstract theory, but as a commitment to the poor, the oppressed, and the voiceless. Frida saw herself a woman with physical and emotional pain, judged and marginalized, reflected in the image of the weak and forgotten. From then on, her paintings became more than self-portraits, they were acts of resistance. In the 1930s, living in the United States, Frida witnessed stark inequality and capitalist excess, which she depicted powerfully in My Dress Hangs There. She frequently appeared at protests and meetings, voicing her stance on national independence, gender equality, and personal freedom. Even as her body weakened, her spirit burned brighter. She attended political events in a wheelchair, holding red flags and speaking with unwavering voice. Her final painting before her death bore the words "Viva la vida," live the life, a final, defiant declaration in the face of death. Frida did not live as just an artist, but as a witness. With her brush, she resisted, she loved, and she declared she existed. Frida Kahlo's life was a journey through pain, not just physical agony, but a deep, persistent emotional torment. The bus accident at 18 left her body shattered, spine damaged, pelvis and legs crushed, organs pierced. It ended her dream of becoming a doctor. She endured over 30 surgeries, spinal braces, amputations, bone reconstructions. She lived in pain, slept in pain, and painted through pain. In her final years, she could barely walk. The wheelchair became her companion. She painted from bed, using a custom easel to work facing upward. In 1953, for her first solo show in Mexico, doctors told her not to leave bed. She refused to miss it. She lay at the center of the exhibition, flowers all around, laughing, smoking, and greeting guests like the final act of a lifelong performance. In 1954, due to gangrene, Frida's right leg was amputated, a devastating blow to her body, but not to her spirit. In her final diary pages, she wrote, "I hope the exit is joyful, and I hope never to return." It was not surrender, it was a proud farewell. Frida Kahlo passed away on July 13, 1954, just days after her 47th birthday. But for those who knew her, death was not an ending. Her life proved that even when imprisoned in the body, the human spirit can live and create, beyond all limits. Frida Kahlo did not paint the outside world. She painted the storms inside her mind. Each of her works is a deep incision into pain, love, and nameless obsessions. Throughout her artistic life, Frida left behind over 140 works, more than a third of which are self-portraits, not to glorify the body, but to expose the psyche. One of her most iconic works is the two Frida's 1939 two versions of herself, one in a European dress with a bleedingly severed heart, the other in Taiwan a dress with a whole heart. They hold hands, connected by a blood vessel, speaking to the division within her. The painting expresses the tension between a self wounded by love, especially after her divorce from Diego, and a self empowered by cultural identity and inner strength. In the Broken Column 1944, Frida paints her body split open, her spine replaced by a crumbling stone pillar, her face calm with tears, not in complaint, but in acceptance. It represents the physical cage her body became, and the mental resilience that survived inside it. In Henry Ford Hospital 1932, Frida illustrates the agony of miscarriage, lying nude on a hospital bed, bleeding, surrounded by symbols of loss, a fetus, a pelvis, a snail, medical tools. There is nothing more raw, more honest. Frida didn't paint to conceal, but to confront. Her art is not famous for technique or style, but for the emotional power it delivers. Viewers don't just see her paintings, they feel them. This is what made her one of the most influential female painters of the 20th century. She invited us into her storm, and we emerged changed. When Frida Kahlo died in 1954, she was not yet a household name. To many, she was still just Diego Rivera's wife, with paintings deemed too personal, too strange. But time proved otherwise. Frida did not just endure, she began to blaze brighter, evolving into a global symbol far beyond the confines of art. By the late 20th century, scholars, feminists, and artists began to rediscover Frida as one of the rawest and most powerful voices about human identity, especially womanhood. Frida, who never hid pain, never prettified herself for norms, dared to speak the truth about the body, love, loss, and the desire to be wholly oneself. For women trapped by tradition, Frida became a symbol of liberation. For the LGBTQ community, she was a rare figure who lived openly and fluidly in love, gender, and identity. Her legacy is not just in her paintings but in her vivid image, braided hair with flowers, bold unibrow, piercing gaze. That face now appears on murals, books, shirts, and protest banners. But Frida is not just a fashion or feminist icon. She is a political voice, an artist who resisted through an unyielding selfhood. Her childhood home, La Casa Azul, is now the Frida Kahlo Museum, welcoming millions each year to witness her life and work. Her paintings now sell for millions and hang in the world's most prestigious museums, once dismissed, now celebrated. But perhaps her greatest legacy is the message. In a world of limits, gender, class, health, culture, one can still live truly, create freely, and leave a lasting mark. As she wrote in her diary, "Feet, what do I need you for when I have wings to fly?" And so, as the brush falls from her hand and the colors settle into silence, Frida Kahlo remains, not just in paint, but in memory. She showed us that even within a broken body, The soul can rise, wild and defiant. Her art whispered truths we were afraid to name, and her life reminded us that pain can be transformed into something fierce, something beautiful. As we drift into stillness tonight, may we carry her words gently. Feet, what do I need you for when I have wings to fly? Sleep softly, and let your spirit soar. Tonight's story comes to a close. If your eyes have gently shut, then I wish you a deep, peaceful sleep. Until we meet again in the next dream.